Every breath you take depends on particles doing something that classical physics says is impossible. Electrons in your cells are passing through energy barriers they don't have enough energy to cross. This is quantum tunneling, and it's happening trillions of times per second in your body right now. Without it, the chemistry of life would grind to a halt. You exist because the quantum world doesn't obey the rules we learn in high school physics. Let me show you why life is fundamentally quantum mechanical. In classical physics, if a ball doesn't have enough energy to roll over a hill, it stays on one side. It cannot spontaneously appear on the other side. Energy barriers are absolute. You either have enough energy to cross or you don't. But in quantum mechanics, particles are described by wave functions, probability clouds that extend through space. When a particle encounters an energy barrier, even if it doesn't have enough energy to classically overcome it, there's a probability that it can pass through to the other side. The wave function doesn't stop at the barrier. It decays exponentially inside the barrier but extends beyond it. If the barrier is thin enough, there's a Tungo probability amplitude on the far side. The particle can tunnel through. This isn't metaphor, this is what happens at the quantum level. Particles regularly pass through barriers that should be impenetrable according to classical physics. And this tunneling is essential to countless processes in nature, especially in living organisms. Let me give you the most important example. The enzymes in your cells catalyze chemical reactions that would be impossibly slow without quantum tunneling. These reactions involve transferring protons or electrons from one molecule to another. Classically, these particles would need to overcome significant energy barriers to make the transfer, but enzymes create geometric configurations where tunneling becomes probable. They position molecules so the barrier is thin enough that quantum tunneling occurs at biologically useful rates. Without tunneling, the reactions would be millions of times slower. Your metabolism would cease. Consider DNA replication. Every time a cell divides, it must copy its entire genome with extraordinary fidelity. The enzymes that perform this copying use quantum tunneling to transfer protons during base pairing. Tunneling helps maintain the accuracy of replication by allowing quantum effects to distinguish between correct and incorrect base pairs. Or consider cellular respiration. The electron transport chain in your mitochondria generates energy by moving electrons through a series of protein complexes. These electrons tunnel between sites that are too far apart for classical hopping. The efficiency of ATP production depends on quantum tunneling. Photosynthesis is another striking example. When a plant absorbs sunlight, the energy must be transferred from the light-harvesting antenna to the reaction center with remarkable efficiency. Recent experiments have shown that this energy transfer exploits quantum coherence and tunneling to find the optimal path through the complex molecular structure. The efficiency is near 100%, almost no energy is wasted. This is better than any human-made solar technology, and it works because quantum effects allow the energy to explore multiple pathways simultaneously and collapse into the most efficient route. For decades, we assumed that the warm, wet, chaotic environment of biological systems would destroy any quantum effects immediately. Quantum coherence requires isolation from environmental noise. Living cells are the opposite of isolated. They're constantly interacting with their surroundings, exchanging heat and molecules. This should cause decoherence, the process where quantum superpositions collapse into classical states. And decoherence does happen quickly in biology, but not instantly. There are time windows, brief but sufficient, during which quantum effects persist and influence the outcome of biological processes. This is why life is possible, not despite quantum mechanics, but because of it. Evolution has discovered how to exploit quantum tunneling, quantum coherence, and quantum entanglement to perform chemistry more efficiently than classical processes alone could achieve. Your sense of smell might even depend on quantum tunneling. There's evidence that olfactory receptors don't just detect the shape of odor molecules, but also their vibrational frequencies. The mechanism involves electrons tunneling across molecules at rates that depend on the vibrational modes. Different molecules have different vibrational signatures and thus different tunneling rates. This is controversial and still being researched. But experiments with isotopically substituted molecules, where atoms are replaced with heavier isotopes that vibrate at different frequencies, show that we can distinguish between molecules that are chemically identical but vibrationally different. Classical shape-based detection can't explain this. Quantum tunneling can. Even mutations in DNA might be influenced by quantum effects. Protons in the base pairs can tunnel to incorrect positions, creating tautomeric forms that mispair during replication. This would be a quantum mechanical source of genetic variation. a fundamental randomness at the molecular level that contributes to evolution. Let me make this more visceral. Right now in your body, electrons are tunneling through protein structures in your mitochondria, generating the ATP that powers your thoughts and movements. Protons are tunneling in enzymes, catalyzing the breakdown of the food you ate into usable energy. Quantum mechanics is not some abstract theory, it's the mechanism by which you stay alive. Every thought you have involves neurons firing, which involves ion channels opening and closing, which involves conformational changes in proteins, which involve quantum tunneling of electrons and protons. The electrical signals in your brain depend on quantum processes. Consciousness itself might have quantum components. I've proposed that microtubules inside neurons can maintain quantum coherence for significant periods, and that orchestrated collapse of quantum states in these microtubules could be the basis of conscious moments. This is speculative, but it's grounded in the recognition that quantum effects are ubiquitous in biology. The more we look, the more quantum mechanics we find in living systems, and this raises profound questions. Did life evolve to exploit quantum mechanics, or is quantum mechanics necessary for any chemistry complex enough to support life? Is biology fundamentally quantum, and if so, what does that mean for understanding consciousness, free will, and the nature of life itself? The fact that biology depends on quantum tunneling tells us something profound about the relationship between life and physics. Life is not built on top of physics as some separate phenomenon. Life is physics operating at a level of complexity where quantum effects become biologically significant. This has implications for how we think about what life is and where it can exist. For decades, astrobiologists have searched for life based on assumptions about temperature ranges, liquid water, and chemical composition. These are important factors, but we should also consider quantum effects. Life might only be possible in environments where quantum tunneling can occur at useful rates. Too hot and thermal noise destroys quantum coherence before it can be exploited. Too cold and reaction rates become too slow even with tunneling. There might be a Goldilocks zone for quantum biology just as there is for liquid water. Earth sits in that zone. The temperatures in living cells are warm enough for rapid chemistry, but cool enough that quantum effects aren't immediately destroyed by thermal fluctuations. This might not be a coincidence, it might be a fundamental constraint on where life can emerge. This also affects how we think about artificial life and synthetic biology. If we want to create truly lifelike systems, we might need to incorporate quantum effects explicitly. Classical computers simulating biology might miss crucial dynamics that depend on tunneling or coherence. Quantum computers, on the other hand, might be naturally suited to simulating biological processes. They operate using the same quantum principles that biology exploits. A quantum simulation of an enzyme might capture subtleties that a classical simulation cannot. Now let me address the deeper philosophical implications. If your thoughts and consciousness depend on quantum processes, then you are fundamentally indeterministic. Quantum mechanics is probabilistic. The exact outcome of a quantum tunneling event cannot be predicted, only the probability distribution of outcomes. This means there's true randomness in your brain at the molecular level, not just ignorance of hidden variables, but fundamental quantum uncertainty. Does this give you free will, or does it just mean your thoughts are random? I think the answer is more subtle. Free will isn't about being random, it's about your decisions arising from your own internal processes rather than being determined by external factors. If those internal processes involve quantum events, then your choices are neither deterministic nor purely random. They're genuinely yours in a way they couldn't be if everything were classically predetermined. This is speculative philosophy, not established physics. But it's worth considering. If consciousness involves quantum state collapse, if decisions emerge from orchestrated quantum events in neural structures, then you might have a kind of agency that pure classical physics wouldn't allow. The universe at the quantum level is fundamentally open. The future is not determined by the past in the way classical mechanics implies. There are branching possibilities, superpositions that resolve into definite outcomes only when measured or when decoherence occurs. If your brain is a quantum system, then you're participating in this openness. Your thoughts are not the inevitable result of prior causes plus random noise. They're the collapse of quantum possibilities into classical actualities, influenced by but not determined by the past. Again, this is not proven. It's a framework for thinking about consciousness that takes quantum biology seriously. The experiments to test whether microtubules really maintain quantum coherence in living neurons are difficult but not impossible. Some groups are working on this now. What we can say with confidence is that quantum tunneling is essential to life as we know it. Without it, the chemistry of metabolism, replication, and energy transfer would not work. You are alive because particles in your cells are doing quantum mechanically impossible things trillions of times per second. This should change how you think about yourself. You're not a purely classical object. You're a quantum system, a collection of particles obeying quantum mechanics, organized into structures complex enough to support consciousness and life. Every enzyme in your body is a quantum machine. Every photosynthetic organism is harvesting sunlight using quantum coherence. Birds navigate using quantum effects in their retinas. Your nose might detect smells through quantum tunneling. The mutations that drive evolution might have quantum origins. This is not fringe speculation. These are active areas of research with experimental evidence accumulating. Quantum biology is becoming a recognized field. We're discovering that quantum effects are not confined to cold, isolated laboratory systems. They're happening in warm, wet, chaotic biological environments. The key insight is that biology doesn't try to maintain perfect quantum coherence indefinitely. It exploits quantum effects during brief windows where coherence persists long enough to influence outcomes. Then decoherence occurs and the result becomes classical. This is a fundamentally different regime from quantum computing, which requires long coherence times and careful isolation from the environment. Biology uses quantum mechanics in the presence of noise, extracting advantage from brief quantum excursions before classical behavior reasserts itself. Understanding this could revolutionize our approach to chemistry and material science. If evolution has discovered ways to exploit quantum effects in noisy environments, we should be able to learn from those strategies. Nature has been running quantum algorithms in cells for billions of years. We should study how. There's also a beautiful unity here. Quantum mechanics governs the very small atoms and molecules. Relativity governs the very large galaxies and spacetime, but you exist at the mesoscale, where both matter. You're large enough that spacetime curvature from your mass is relevant for quantum collapse. You're small enough that quantum effects in your molecules determine whether you live or die. You're at the interface. Your existence depends on both quantum mechanics and general relativity. And if consciousness involves their interaction, if it emerges from quantum processes in curved spacetime as I've suggested, then understanding you requires understanding the deepest physics we know. This is why I find biology so fascinating from a physics perspective. It's not separate from fundamental physics, it's fundamental physics in action at the most complex level we've encountered. Life is what happens when quantum mechanics operates in systems organized enough to use it. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. You tend to think of quantum mechanics as abstract, something that happens in particle accelerators or physics labs, but it's happening in you right now. Electrons are tunneling through barriers in your mitochondria. Protons are tunneling in your enzymes. Quantum superpositions are collapsing into definite states in your neurons. You are not separate from the quantum world. You are the quantum world becoming complex enough to know itself. Every breath, every thought, every heartbeat depends on particles doing quantum mechanically impossible things. Classical physics cannot explain you. You are a fundamentally quantum phenomenon. And recognizing this should change how you understand your place in nature. You're not a classical object that happens to be made of quantum particles. You're a quantum system that appears classical at macroscopic scales, but remains quantum at the molecular level where life actually happens. This is the revolution that quantum biology represents. Not that we're finding quantum effects in living things, though we are, but that we're recognizing life itself as a quantum phenomenon. That the warm, wet chemistry of cells is fundamentally quantum mechanical and could not work any other way. You exist at the edge of the quantum classical transition, large enough to appear solid and classical, small enough that quantum effects in your molecules determine your fate, warm enough for chemistry to proceed rapidly, cool enough for quantum coherence to persist just long enough to matter. You are quantum tunneling right now, in your cells, in your DNA, in the enzymes that keep you alive, and you will continue quantum tunneling for as long as you live because life is not possible without it. This is not speculation, this is established science. Quantum mechanics is not optional for biology, it's essential. You are alive because the quantum world permits the impossible, and every moment of your existence is proof that reality at its deepest level is far stranger and more beautiful than everyday experience suggests. The particles in your body are tunneling through barriers existing in superpositions, entangling with each other, collapsing into definite states. This is what life is. This is what you are. A quantum process unfolding in space-time, matter organized into patterns complex enough to know and feel and think. And that's the most remarkable thing about quantum tunneling in biology. It's not just that it happens, it's that it's necessary. Without it, you wouldn't be here to contemplate it. Life is quantum mechanical at its core, and you are living proof.